The hate around Lamar Jackson these past few weeks has been insane.
I don't know what he actually is right now because it's not what it used to be.
To understand how we arrived at this moment where a two-time MVP faces mounting criticism despite his statistical dominance, we need to rewind to where it all began, in the 2018 NFL Draft. April 26, 2018 should have been the night of celebration for Lamar Jackson. The Heisman Trophy winner from Louisville had put together just one of the most electrifying college careers in recent memory, becoming the first player ever to record 3,500 passing yards and 1,500 rushing yards in consecutive seasons. He'd accumulated 69 passing touchdowns against just 29 interceptions across those 3 years, leading the Cardinals to heights they hadn't seen in decades. Yet, as the first round unfolded, Jackson watched from the green room as quarterback after quarterback heard their names called before his. Baker Mayfield went first overall to Cleveland, Sam Darnold followed by going to the Jets, Josh Allen landed in Buffalo, even Josh Rosen, whose college production paled in comparison, was selected ahead of him. The whispers had started long before draft night. Multiple teams reportedly requested that Jackson could work out at wide receiver during the NFL Combine, a suggestion that carried uncomfortable racial undertones given the league's history of converting black quarterbacks to other positions. Bill Polian was a respected former NFL GM turned ESPN analyst, publicly stated that Jackson was short and a little bit slight, and clearly not the thrower of the other guys. The accuracy just isn't there, so I wouldn't wait to make the change. This is despite Jackson completing 57% of his passes in college, a figure higher than Josh Allen's at 56% at Wyoming. Yet Allen faced no such position change suggestions. It was clear Lamar was going to have to be twice as good mentally and physically. Jackson finally heard his name called with the 32nd and final pick of the first round. The Baltimore Ravens, led by GM Ozzie Newsome and head coach John Harbaugh, were the only team willing to bet on him at quarterback. It was a slight that Jackson would never forget, and one that would fuel him for years to come. But Lamar made a promise to Ravens fans right after getting drafted that probably put a target on his back from day one.
They're gonna get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that.
Jackson's path to the starting lineup came sooner than anybody anticipated. When Joe Flacco went down with a hip injury in Week 10 of the 2018 season, Harbaugh made the controversial decision to hand the keys to his rookie. The Ravens were 4-5 and their playoff hopes were fading. What happened next shocked the NFL world. Jackson didn't just manage games, he transformed the entire offense. His unique blend of speed, elusiveness, and arm talent forced defensive coordinators to completely rethink their game plans. The Ravens won 6 of their next 7 games, with Jackson rushing for 695 yards and 5 TDs, while completing 58% of his passes. They made the playoffs, and though they lost in the wildcard round to the Chargers, Jackson had announced his arrival. Still, the doubters persisted. He was still looked at as a running back playing quarterback, and since he played so poorly during that playoff game, people were truly calling for Lamar to be benched at half for Flacco. That right there was where the seeds were planted for the hate. If 2018 was Jackson's introduction, 2019 was his coronation. What he accomplished in his first full season as a starter defied belief. He threw for 3,127 yards and 36 touchdowns against just 6 interceptions, posting a 113.3 passer rating. But it was his rushing that truly separated him from every other quarterback who'd come before. 1,206 yards on the ground, shattering Michael Vick's single-season record for a quarterback. The Ravens finished 14-2, the best record in the NFL. Jackson became the youngest quarterback ever to be named league MVP, and he did so unanimously. He led the league in touchdown passes, and his 43 total touchdowns were the most by any player that season. The efficiency was staggering. He ranked first in touchdown percentage, 7th in yards per attempt, and posted the 4th highest passer rating in a single season in NFL history. Lamar was breaking almost every Michael Vick record we'd ever seen. For a brief moment, it seemed Jackson had silenced every critic. He'd proven he could throw, he'd proven he could win, he'd proven he belonged among the elite. Then came the playoffs. The Tennessee Titans came to Baltimore for the divisional round as heavy underdogs. What unfolded was a nightmare for Jackson. He completed just 31 of 59 passes for 365 yards, throwing 1 touchdown against 2 interceptions. The Ravens lost 28-12, and suddenly all the old questions came roaring back. Could he perform under pressure? Was his style really sustainable in January? And had defenses figured him out? This became the template for Jackson's career. Regular season dominance followed by playoff disappointment. The pattern would repeat itself with cruel consistency. The 2020 and 2021 seasons saw Jackson remain productive but unable to recapture his MVP form. In 2020, he threw for 2,757 yards and 26 touchdowns, but his interceptions jumped to 9. The Ravens made the playoffs in 2020, but Jackson's postseason struggles continued. He won his first game against the Titans and had one of the best runs of his career. Then they lost to Buffalo in the divisional round after a pick 6 and a concussion essentially ended the game. In 2021, they missed the playoffs entirely after Jackson suffered a season-ending injury. The injuries became another talking point for critics. Was his running style really sustainable? Would his body really hold up for a full career? These were fair questions, but they added to the growing narrative that Jackson, for all his talent, might never be that guy. The guy to lead a team to a championship. Following the 2022 season and yet another season-ending injury, Jackson's relationship with the Ravens became strained over contract negotiations. Unlike most star quarterbacks, Jackson had no agent. He represented himself, with his mother Felicia Jones serving as his manager. He wanted a fully guaranteed contract similar to what Deshaun Watson had received from Cleveland, and the Ravens balked. The standoff dragged into the early offseason, with Jackson even requesting a trade at one point. The public nature of this dispute damaged his image. Some viewed him as greedy, others questioned his business acumen, and some straight up said he should be traded for Justin Fields. Eventually, the two sides reached an agreement on a 5-year, $260 million deal, but the damage to his relationship with the fan base seemed to rub a lot of fans the wrong way. That all shifted after the following season. The 2023 season represented Jackson's redemption arc. He was spectacular, throwing for 3,678 yards and 24 touchdowns against just 7 interceptions. His 102.7 passer rating and efficient play earned him his second MVP award, and he was just one first-place vote shy of having 2 unanimous MVPs. The Ravens entered the playoffs as the AFC's top seed with a 13-4 record. They dispatched Houston in the divisional round, with Jackson throwing for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then came the AFC Championship game against Kansas City. Jackson played pretty poorly, even though he completed 20 of 37 passes for 272 yards and a touchdown, along with a god-awful interception. And that was it for the season. The Ravens lost 17-10, and once again, Jackson's playoff record became the story. He was now 2-4 in the postseason, and the narrative of him being unable to win big games had solidified into conventional wisdom. If there was ever a season designed to silence Jackson's critics, 2024 should have been it. He put together arguably the greatest season by any quarterback in NFL history. He threw for 4,172 yards and 41 passing TDs against just 4 interceptions, while rushing for over 900 yards as well. His 119.6 passer rating was the 4th highest single season mark ever recorded. He became the first quarterback in NFL history to throw 40+ touchdowns with fewer than 5 interceptions in the season. He was matching Tom Brady and Drew Brees for their efficiency with Vic-level rushing. He was named first-team All-Pro for the 3rd time and finished second in MVP voting behind only Josh Allen. Yet the Ravens finished just 12-5, losing 5 games despite Jackson's brilliance, mostly because of an awful defense. The 2024 playoffs began promisingly. In the wildcard round against Pittsburgh, Jackson was efficient, completing 16 of 21 passes for a $175 and 2 TDs. But the divisional round against Buffalo exposed all the old wounds. Jackson played well statistically and down the stretch, 18 of 25 for 254 yards and 2 TDs, but the Ravens lost 27-25. It was his 5th playoff loss in 8 career postseason games, dropping his record to 3-5, and the criticism was immediate. Social media erupted with takes declaring Jackson a choker and a playoff fraud. The fact that he posted a 114.4 passer rating in the loss really didn't matter. The fact that his defense allowed 27 points also didn't matter. All that mattered was the loss, and Jackson bore the brunt of the blame. For the turnovers in the beginning of the game, he got more blame for Mark Andrews' game-tying drop than Andrews did somehow. Nothing changed for the Ravens heading into 2025. There was no real way for Lamar to keep the same magic. Jackson was hurt during training camp, getting his foot stepped on. For the first few weeks in the season, the Ravens' offense was on a historical pace. However, yet again, the defense was awful. By week 4, whispers about Jackson's health started circulating because he wasn't running nearly as much as he used to. Then he would be out with a hamstring injury against the Chiefs, and instead of people believing his injury, they figured he had quit on the team. But he ultimately missed the next 4 games. He came back in week 8 and looked pretty bad for the next few weeks as well. The low point came in week 13 against Cincinnati on Thanksgiving. Jackson clearly compromised physically, just threw for 246 yards with no TDs and 1 interception with 2 lost fumbles in a humiliating 32-14 loss. The Ravens fell to 6-7, and the playoff hopes that seemed guaranteed just months earlier were evaporating. He was playing on one good leg. He had a terrible offensive line, and nobody really seemed to care. He would miss 1.5 games in December, and the Ravens went 1-1 with Huntley under center. After getting taken out with a back injury against the Patriots, people thought that he was faking that injury as well, and Tyler Huntley led the Ravens to win the following week by handing the ball off to Derrick Henry 30 times. So people thought Huntley should play for week 18 in the finale to get into the playoffs. But Jackson returned for week 18. And though he was clearly still compromised, in a crucial game against Pittsburgh, he completed 11 of 18 passes for 238 yards with 3 TDs and 1 interception. The Ravens lost 26-24 after Lamar giving them multiple 4th quarter leads and putting them in place for Tyler Loop to miss. Even still, Jackson's poor play in big games became the story once again. The season mercifully ended with an 8-9 record, the Ravens' first losing season since 2021. Jackson finished with 2,549 yards, 21 TDs, and just 7 interceptions. His 103.8 passer rating was still above league average, but the narrative had shifted completely. Would the Ravens extend Lamar or trade him? Will they get rid of John Harbaugh? And then the bombshell came. On January 6, 2026, the Ravens announced they had fired John Harbaugh after 18 seasons as the head coach. The move shocked the NFL world. Harbaugh had won a Super Bowl and made the playoffs in 11 of his 18 seasons. He posted a 186 and 100 regular season record, and he's widely respected as one of the best coaches for some reason in football. The reaction was overwhelmingly negative towards Lamar, but we should have seen this coming, because in December a report from the Baltimore Sun suggested that Jackson was playing too many video games and slept through too many meetings, and that there was tension between him and Harbaugh. The tension came to a head at the end of the season after the loss to Pittsburgh. When asked if he wanted Harbaugh back, Lamar notably declined to give a full endorsement and didn't answer the question, which I also don't fault him for, but it was an interesting response. Harbaugh, after all, was the coach who had believed in Jackson when 31 other teams passed on him. He was the one who had given him a chance, who'd built an offense around his unique skills, who'd stood by him through injuries and contract disputes. Now, after one more big game loss, Harbaugh was gone, and Jackson was painted as the villain. Now people are not sure where to stand on Lamar. I personally love him and think he'll be fine and hoist a Lombardi one day. But now people think he sucks and is past his prime. Lamar has been doubted, dismissed, and disrespected at pretty much every turn, yet he's responded by becoming one of the most productive quarterbacks in NFL history. His playoff record is a legitimate concern, but it's also been weaponized against him in ways that ignore context and team performance. The firing of John Harbaugh was the right choice, and even if the Ravens make the wrong choice as their next head coach, he had been there 18 years and was disappointing at the end, to say the least. The hate Lamar is experiencing now isn't new, it's just louder. John Elway faced this, so did Peyton Manning and Steve Young. They all eventually got over the hump, and I think the same will happen for Lamar. So there you have it, why everyone suddenly hates Lamar Jackson. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you're new.